In our review, this is what it is the, you've got the 1948 map, then there was the adoption of the creation of the open space zone, and then came the creation of the coastal development zone, and we've done all the research of it, and there's nothing. Those are the important milestones.
Okay. And City Attorney, you concur? Is there anything else to add, or?
Sure. This, we had the underlying zoning of the city. There was no open space zone, and the significant change was in '83, the creation of it, and it specifically kept out, it rezoned the vast majority of the city's property into open space, but held back the city's property that was within the coastal zone. And then this timeline doesn't list the creation of the coastal overlay zone, which was in 1991, I believe. And, and when the overlay zone was created, it specifically did not change the underlying zoning of the parcels within it. It created an overlay zone, which would supersede in terms of the uses that are used, that are allowed within the zone, but it does not change the underlying zoning. And so you would need to comply with the coastal overlay zone requirements that would layer on top of the underlying zoning, whether that's R1 or I think multifamily is the only other zoning that's within that area.
Okay. All right. And then I guess the only other question I would have relates back to the 1940 quitclaim deed from the PVHA to the city, which I believe I'm looking at a copy of it on my computer here. I think it's available on the internet. I am certainly not an expert in deeds of this complexity or deeds at all, but it appears to have a reversionary component that is very broadly applied. I mean, again, I have a hard time reading things like, tract 6885 to the point which intersects at the northerly line with a bearing of north 144425 west, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't pretend to understand exactly what that all means, but it appears to essentially cover, the entirety of what is being given to the city. And so, assuming for a moment that that is true, and I understand that without doing some detailed research, we can't absolutely prove, which parcels and sectors are applied, tract maps. But in theory, if that were true, then all of that land would, in fact, would not be R1 because it would fall under one of the exemptions that is encoded in the ordinance today. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, you're correct. As we talked about at the last meeting, the open space zone did carve out from the conversion of the city's property, anything in the coastal zone. But separate from that, one of the conditions was any property, I'm going to summarize, that had a right of reverter to the PVHA. And any of those properties would be zoned open space, would have been created as open space when it was originally created. Staff here, would need, in order to determine if those reverter, interest exists, would need to pull the title and check each of them, and then the map could be updated. Some of the parcels within the coastal zone that are showing up here as, CZ, but R1 underlying, may actually be open space. This map does not change that, but without doing that work, the staff can't say which parcels, if any, and to what extent are open space. But if any development would have to happen, it would need to comply with those deed restrictions, and the underlying zoning would be revealed through that process for any project that would go forward on them.
So that's a pretty detailed legal nuance. Would it be fair to say that without doing that research, that representing that all of it was R1 on a zoning map may be factually incorrect?
A number of those parcels, yes, are, may be open space.
What's the job title of the type of person that would actually read through and figure, is that a land surveyor, is that a land attorney, or who would actually be qualified to read through a 150-year-old deed like that?
It could be done a number of different ways, depending on how you.
150, how old are you?
Or however old these deeds are. I mean, they're pretty old.
Yeah, I mean,
They're pretty old.
Land grants from Spanish on this. But yeah, it could be done through our office in conjunction with staff or with the consultant. The titles just need to be pulled and examined for the deed restrictions on them.
Okay. All right, well, I don't have any more questions. I guess I may have a couple comments, but, yeah.
Councilmember Quinn?
So first of all, I want to thank Cheryl and staff for redoing this map, and it's much clearer than it was last time, so very much appreciate the hard work there. I do have a question. I think you mentioned that there was one multiple resident area in the coastal zone? Where is that, please?
Correct. It's right, let me show you. What? Yeah, it is, but it's easier to show over there.
Adjacent to the other multifamily, right?
Yeah, it's just. It's just right here. Right by City Hall, across the street.
Across the street from City Hall?
Can you show for the audience what you were indicating?
Turn that around and show it to people.
So we're talking intersection of PV Drive West at the beginning of, sort of end of Via Corta, beginning of Via Almar?
And is that area, are we concerned that someone may develop on that area? Or is that protected with the underlying deed restrictions that we talked about?
That area is, the underlying zoning is RM. It's currently developed with the multifamily residential development.
So it's already on there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Derek stole my thunder.
Okay, so I only have one card, but if anybody else wants to speak, please send up a card. Phyllis Scribe.
Well, I'm glad to see, Phyllis Scribe, 356 Via Almar. Yes, it's nice to see your new map. We saw the one 2 weeks ago and, had a fit. So let me start by saying the staff created the new zoning map showing all of the lots in the city to replace the map that was lost. They did a good job, except for they left off all of the R1 zoning along the bluffs in Lunada Bay and Malaga Cove, and all of the open space between the clusters of lots. They zoned all of the bluff lots R1. And of course, that was what got everybody thinking. In the late 1980s, I procured a map from the city, the fire map, which I brought here tonight. I noticed that your new map, which is not this one, does not show any of the bluff lots zoned R1 that show on my map, or any of the open space between these clusters of lots that exist. My question is, one question, I have two, is why is the parkland in the coastal overlay zone not zoned open space? But now I'm beginning to think maybe part of it is. I don't know. I'll have to see your map. Since your last meeting, a group of us have tried to research the land zoning of our bluffs with Monique. She's the archivist at the main library. But it takes a lot of time because we have no dates to go by. In 1991, you mentioned that, I think, the LCP talks about keeping public land as open space, and that all land in coastal zones except R1 lots is zoned open space and remains permanent parkland. So why do you have it all zoned R1? Please don't approve this map as it was at this meeting, that we need to slow down. We need to get this right. The city may need to hire a land use attorney to guide them through this process. This land is too valuable to make a mistake. We all remember the Via Panorama lawsuit and what it cost our HOA. Please, let's all work together, take the time needed, and get this zoning map correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I don't see any. Okay. All right, back to council. Mayor Pro Tem, you want to kick us off? What are your thoughts?
So I will double down on saying thank you for all the work and the effort that you have put forth and reviewed and modified, et cetera. This nuance, he stole the thunder for the question, so I'm going to steal the thunder for the comment. This nuance about PVHA having reversionary rights on lots that are, I'm not going to confuse it by saying R1, that are not built upon with residences, to keep it simple, I think requires review, it requires research, and potentially, to the speaker's point of getting it right, I think potentially some or all is a pretty big legal term, but some or all of the land that does not presently have built R1 residences may potentially already be open space. And I don't know that we're properly reflecting that on this map, understanding very well the differences between deed restricted property and municipal zoning. But I think we may have an opportunity, without rezoning anything, to research those deeds and adjust the zoning map to more carefully align with and respect what those deed restrictions say, if I understand the legal point. Maybe you could comment further.
Yeah, absolutely. If that's the pleasure of the council, the research into those, into the titles and the deed restrictions on those properties would provide clarity, and there could be a determination about whether the individual properties are actually, in fact, open space due to the reversionary rights. So if that's the council's pleasure, the staff and my office are happy to, start that work and work with the PVHA to get all the files, pull the title reports as necessary, and have them reviewed by, we have specialists in our office, and we also have staff here.
Yeah, I mean, again, to the speaker's comments, I was going to say this anyway, when thinking about and talking through not just the Lugliani lawsuit that involved John Harbison, but going back with the school district suits and everything else, we don't need to go through any of that again or set any future council or staff up to happen again, right? So I think this version of the map is much better, and it's close. But this issue of R1 and what really is and what really isn't R1, reflective of those reversionary rights, I think we have to go there.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just say that I very much agree with Mr. Kemp's comments. And, this is one of the most important and contentious topics broadly within our community, and for good reason. I think all of us agree that it's a very important topic. Having sat through a few of these meetings now where we've been discussing, effectively this topic, I am fairly convinced myself that the most likely outcome of our research is that essentially all of the land marked in green will be proven to be not R1 at all. Again, I can't read these tract maps, but the quitclaim deed seems to essentially refer to all of, quote unquote, said realty basically everything above that paragraph on page 15, paragraph 7. So it appears really to be quite sweeping, and there isn't really any carve out that I can see. Now, again, somebody's going to have to read this who does this for a day job, but so I guess I would say I agree. Again, my thought here would be to delay the adoption of this map until we're able to look at it. Hopefully it is a relatively short process, weeks or months, not much longer than that. But I think getting this right is very important to the community, and frankly, is kind of the whole intent. I mean, in 1940, they kind of anticipated some conversation like this, and they got in front of us. So I think we have to work within the
Good for them.
constraints. Yeah.
So, Trevor or Carrie, can you comment on, I guess, approving this zoning map, adopting this zoning map, and then doing this research and adjusting later? Because it does not sound like a quick process to me, versus just not adopting it and, while that research takes place. And I guess what I'm asking is what risks are we facing, or what risks are we living with by not adopting a zoning map?
Sure. So I would say that legally, there's no significance to whether you adopt this map or not. Very clearly, we have said throughout that this is not changing the zoning throughout the city. If any parcel was, proposed to be developed, staff would pull up the parcel, look at the deed restrictions, determine if the zoning on this map was correct or incorrect, if it was open space underlying, before anything could happen. The issue would be if you adopt it tonight, whether there would be confusion about this map. You guys understand the community best, and we want to be sure that everyone understands the protections, the severe protections that are in place, for all these parcels that staff is very protective of as well. The process, if you do want to go through the diligence of pulling the deed restrictions for the parcels and you don't want to approve the map tonight, would be to continue that to a date and certain, and then direct staff to examine the deed restrictions and titles to the parcels located within the coastal zone to determine if any are open space based on the provisions in the open space zone definition regarding deed restrictions.
How many parcels are we talking about here?
I don't think they're divided parcels, and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the point.
Big
I
swaths
think
of land. Well, I mean, I guess you're not talking about places, you're not talking about where there's a structure.
That's right.
If there's already a structure in the green strip,
the
presumably it was
pink or-
R1.
Right. Whatever that color is exactly,
But-
kind of pinkish color.
Yeah.
I think those are R1. I think on the map we're looking at, it's the green strip. I don't know that it is a subdivided parcel. I think it's a tract or description of land, a legal description of land, which is undivided. It is owned by the city. It is probably open space, and it is probably deed restricted. And so, I would, if we really feel some urgency to pass this map tonight, frankly, I would take a risk and I would say, we'll pass it, but we're going to change the label on that to open space.
I wouldn't do that without the research. I'd hold the
Yeah, and again, I don't necessarily feel the urgency to do that, but if we were going to pass a map tonight, that's probably what I would vote for. And otherwise, I think I'd prefer to continue.
I guess for me, the deed, and sorry, I'll get your thoughts, Councilmember Quinn.
I mean, the technicality, if we violate the deed, the land reverts to the PVHA. I'll just throw that out there.
I'm sure they want it.
I don't know that they do, but that is the remedy that's provided by the deed, so.
Yeah, Councilmember Quinn, what are your thoughts?
I would delay it and get it right, get it locked down so that it's, exact. and there's no ambiguity. I'm also very concerned about SB 79 and the fact that in the transit zone areas up and down the state of California, all local controls, I understand it, is being eliminated, and very large apartment complexes can be built around transit zones. So Sacramento keeps moving the goalposts, and I wouldn't do anything to this map that would give any ability for someone to come in and build along our coastline. So I would say let's get it right, let's wait, and
Just to be clear, so that doesn't create any panic, SB 79 does not apply inside the city of Palos Verdes Estates, correct?
No, I don't think there are any locations
No.
that would qualify, correct?
No, that doesn't qualify.
But
Yeah.
But the
Everyone said-
concept,
The point about future legislation absolutely applies.
right,
Yeah.
right,
so.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Can I ask a question?
please.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand, get some clarity on this. The areas in the green, maybe this is for Trevor, maybe it's for all of you. We need to research PVHA deeds and see what the intent of the zoning was.
No.
No,
It's
no.
to determine if there is the right of reverter that's
Okay.
specified in the open space zoning.
Paragraph 7, page 15 of the quitclaim deed, which it appears to apply to 100% of the land which was deeded from the PVHA to the city when the city was incorporated. Because, again, we have to understand the history here. It was all owned by the PVHA at one point, 100% of it, every square inch, the roads, the lots, the open space, the city hall, the 100% of it was owned by PVHA. They essentially gave it away as, for lack of a better term, a gift to the city with a bunch of restrictions attached to it, and then a very severe, penalty if those restrictions are violated, which is it comes back to us. There were subdivisions. In 1940, there were already subdivisions, obviously. In fact, almost all of the subdivisions were already completed by 1940. The homes were largely owned. I recently saw a map that showed most of the lots were already owned. They weren't necessarily built upon, but they were privately owned. The pieces that were not privately owned were largely the school sites, the bluffs, the roads, the golf course, the city hall, and the parklands. And so those are the areas that we're really talking about. But I believe, again, it includes an undivided, legally described land area, which constitutes, the only reason that's coded green at all is because upon the passage of the Coastal Act, we had the interaction with our ordinance. But otherwise, it's effectively the same as any other space. So anyway, I actually think this may be simpler than we've made it out to be, and I understand that, again, I want to compliment the city staff too. I know you guys have worked really, really hard on this. It's been part of a multi-year process to navigate, as Councilmember Quinn said, this sort of thing that's been imposed on us by Sacramento. None of us, in my opinion, we're all wasting time, having to navigate this stuff. But we've been forced to by state law. And so here we are. But I think again, to me, it's becoming increasingly clear. It's almost certainly open space. I think we either pass it as such or let the staff do their research and go from there.
Okay, so I'm hearing three that we do not want to adopt the ordinance 769, so.
Let me ask the question. Sorry. Let's go there. What's the downside of changing the designation to open space and adopting it? Subject to validation.
I mean, they just said there's legally no risk to doing it the other way, so there can't be much of a difference.
It's just a zoning map.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, what's the question? Is it
What if we direct staff to change it right now to open space and pass the map?
I wouldn't recommend that because we don't have the support to do it. It could be misleading.
But frankly, we didn't know really the other way around, did we?
Well, we do. I mean, we
no.
do know based on the language in there that that's what it was, and that's why the note is on there to designate that you do need to check the deed restrictions on
Right,
the
but
property.
we
and that
don't
would
really
result-
know what the green, like technically until we check the deeds, we don't really actually know what the green is, either way, if we were to pass it tonight, sitting here today. Like you can't swear that you know for sure that all of that green, in fact, earlier you just said, you know that it's not all technically R1 overlay zone.
If there,
We all know that. We all know that at a minimum, there's some elements within it that is not, in fact,
I
that.
haven't reviewed the deed restrictions and the title pool to be able to say for sure that any parcel would have to be rezoned to open space. I think there's an open question about it, and whether the point of this map is that has the notes so you know that you need to go and check that.
Yeah.
To see what the zoning is. But I wouldn't recommend adopting a map that would be misleading or that would lead to the wrong impression if the council is.
All right, but with all due respect, it is misleading to pass it as it is on the screen right now. It is. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say that.
Councilman
That's the truth.
Councilman
Yeah.
Lazaro,
Yeah.
nobody's arguing with you guys on that.
All right.
You're hearing no argument from staff. If the council wants to continue this and direct staff to do the work, we will. I think that
I guess-
to answer
That's my concern.
Yeah.
Well,
Pro
I mean,
tem.
we can move on because we have 3 votes to move on, so we should do that. You know, I guess what I would want to know, I don't want to be in $1 million on looking at having some lawyer look at all of these deeds.
Some lawyer.
So, sorry,
Well,
a lawyer.
you know, the reality
an esteemed
is-
lawyer from your firm looking at all of these things. I don't. And if this is not going to be a staff exercise, and frankly, you know, why is PVHA? Well, of course, they would do it and then they'd send us a bill. But, you know, so I think it is opening a bit of a you often make it sound like it's a simple thing, like, oh, we'll just get some interns to do it, and it's not. So I wouldn't want,
It's the
I'd
cost
want to
of doing
know,
business.
I would want to know, what are we really looking at? What's the project really entail here before I'm not ready to say, hey, go do it, because I don't know what it is. That's where I disagree with you guys. That's where I disagree. Sorry, 1 second, City Treasurer. That's where I disagree with you guys. You know, for me, you know, if it's R1, if the deed, where does my protection come from on development on that zone? Well, it comes from the deed restrictions that are sitting on top of it, whether it's R1 or open space.
But the deed, no, let's be very clear. The deed restrictions actually change the zoning. That is specifically what we're talking about here. So if you read the ordinance, our city ordinance states that depending on whether or not it is reversionary land, it is either one zone or another. So it's actually interlinked. What the confusion in this city a lot of the time is that sometimes we're sort of running in parallel with the PVHA, which I find terribly confusing and unpleasant that we are at times at cross purposes and at times not. And you know, sometimes it's their rules and our rules and so forth and so on. In this particular case, our own ordinance interlinks with these deeds. And so depending on what the deed actually said, like let's just pick any random parcel, right? The golf course, the school, whatever, an identifiable parcel. If in fact there's a reversionary right on it, and it's inside the coastal zone, which none of those happen to be, then it's one zone. And if there isn't, then it's another zone. So it's not just that the deeds are an additional restriction that we're notating, it's that the deeds actually change the zoning today without us doing anything. It's already happened. And so if we pass the map, I mean, I like the city attorney, and we have vigorous debates, both here and elsewhere. But in fact, the truth is that it is not innocuous to pass this map and have it be incorrect, or if it is innocuous to pass the map and have it be incorrect, then we can pass it and call it open space. I mean, it can't really be both.
I think the key point, and then we can, maybe move on. I think maybe this persuades your thought process. I think the key point is, at least what I'm trying to ensure that we achieve, is in any future conversation with HCD or around housing element review, with the consultants, with future staff, with future council members, we have an opportunity to make it absolutely dead fast clear with that map that the amount of time that when Jim Roos and I were put on an ad hoc to start working on the housing element, if Gina had this map, including the open zones, the open space statement, we would have saved a lot. The amount of time we would have saved would have been ridiculous, right? So we have an opportunity to set that up in the future, because we know every 9 years, and this was delayed, so it's only going to be, where are we, 25, 4 more years. We're going to go through it again. We're going to go through it again. And sorry if this gets political, we know damn well Sacramento is going to try and shove more stuff down our throat, and we need every possible legal defense, and we don't need to go confusing what we're representing in order to potentially open up opportunities, I'm just going to say it, to screw us over.
Okay,
So-
we're going to move on, but what direction are we actually giving here?
I believe the direction is to continue the approval of the map to a date uncertain, and then to direct staff and the city attorney to review the deed restrictions of the areas in the green to determine if the right of reverter exists such that the proper zoning for those parcels would be open space.
Okay, and we don't want anything that says, how many hours is that going to be, and how much is that going to cost?
I don't think we do.
So it's an
No,
open-ended
I don't think we
thing.
do, and I'll say why.
Okay, no, don't say why. Nope,
I
nope,
wanna
no,
say why.
no,
I
no.
think it is I think it is one of the
Eric.
most important topics
You already said that.
facing
You've
our-
said it, so we
If
agree.
it
I
costs
just want to make sure
hundreds
that
of
we're.
thousands, I'm willing
Okay,
to pay it.
That was my question. Do we care what it costs? And I'm hearing you say no.
Sure, we care what it costs. Do it as effectively and efficiently as possible with
Okay.
the most effective use of counsel that you can.
Ditto.
Okay, fine. Then we're moving this to a date uncertain.
Did someone make the motion that?
I'll move that we move this item to a date uncertain and direct the city attorney's office to review reversionary rights with the Palos Verdes Homes Association and the associated deed restrictions in order to effectuate a properly configured map that states that the open land is most likely open space.
I agree, I second.
The last part. Okay, all in favor?
One clarification, that was for the green area only, correct? Okay.
Okay.
Now, the item is still open around the Via Panorama lots and anything that was commented on outside of open space that was mentioned in this presentation. Correct? Or is that the only one remaining, is that Via Panorama lot?
Panorama and the lot
Lot O.
of deed restrictions.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.